A quick look at the markets, get away from the fun for a moment. This is ahead of the opening bell. And we're taking a look at futures that are up across the board now. A little, stronger strength, momentum gaining as we move through the morning. The Dow's indicated higher by 83 points, the Nasdaq by 97, the S&P by 16. James, your thought on the market. I say this is not, a huge relief rally after the sell-off, but some bargain hunting and a little, optimism of let me dip a toe in.
Yeah, and I think it's encouraging after we got very strong comments from the New York Fed president after the Fed chair's comments last week. It suggests maybe there's hope that we can have sound money, get back to sound money, and keep the economy strong.
Brandon, I know you're not necessarily a market watcher, but you're sort of watching over the economy. We talked about taxes with you as well, how people are feeling with inflation and then the sentiment and the zeitgeist that's out there, because that certainly ends up being reflected in the stock market as well, how people are feeling. And as our previous guest was saying, he's saying expect some volatility.
Yeah, I think we should expect some volatility, but the good news is Congress isn't currently in session, so they're not around to muck things up more than they already have. We're hoping that they're going to coast into this election and do very, very little. Of course, funding for the government is scheduled to expire about a month from today, so there is still room for mischief there from Congress and this president, but as long as they keep a low profile, spend more time on the campaign trail, less time making bad laws, I think that's good news for the market and good news for the nation overall.
Yeah, James, I just want to come to you because I called it a gut punch, the last round of spending between the so-called Inflation Reduction Act and then the forgiveness of the student loans. Like, it really knocked me out last week, and I think a lot of people felt the same way, especially at a time where, inflation is running rampant, and they're just wondering, when is this going to stop?
Yeah, I mean, the Federal Reserve has really got to do this on its own because they're getting no help from the Biden administration, nothing but discouraging the supply side of the economy, people working, producing, creating, and juicing demand with more spending. So the policy recipe from Washington is terrible. Or I should say from the White House. It's really up to the Fed. And I guess for the moment, it seems like they are ready to do the job they have to do.
Yeah. And Jerome Powell, as our previous guest said, walking in cement blocks on a tightrope. It's a tough job. I always say don't envy him. Yeah. And it's interesting, James, because the two sides, obviously, we know that they are separate. And 100% I get that. But they're not supposed to be at odds with each other, too. I'm sure behind the scenes or inside his own head, Jerome Powell must be infuriated when he sees President Biden just writing these blank checks, because it puts all the onus on him to try to fix the mess.
Yeah, but he did volunteer to serve again, renominated, confirmed. So like it or not, he's the guy, and at least for the moment, it seems like he might really mean it. So that's encouraging, because we got to have a solid currency. Without that, we don't have a society.
Yeah, it's a great point. And